Legends of Tomorrow, Season 2, Episode 2, The Justice Society of America. Really cool episode. You know, it was a fun episode. We got to see the Reverse Flash in here. We got to see him actually do, the phasing hand thing by the end of the episode. We got to see, the Justice Society of America, which was pretty cool. We got, the, I guess, grandmother version of Vixen, technically. So that was pretty cool. And I would assume if you watch this, you got to watch at least one of the other two shows, or I guess 3 shows now, since they had a Supergirl. So I would assume you'd have to watch either Arrow or Flash, but Vixen has been a part of that, which is really cool. And she's got they're doing the second season of Vixen, the animated series on the CWC now, which I really got to check out. But it was cool to see a different person in the role of Vixen. I thought that was interesting, and they gave her a similar costume, which I was curious if they'd talk about that, but none of the legends were involved with the Vixen, the current version of Vixen. So it's I would love to get her backstory and how all that stuff ties into the modern day version of Vixen, because I'm there's clearly actual history there between those characters. But sadly, we don't get any info on that. Maybe we'll get some of that a bit later. I would assume with them showing the JSA, we aren't going to be getting them in just one episode. They're going to show up multiple times. We have the whole sort of weird time loop thing going with Rex Tyler. And that was kind of one of the things I liked about this episode. Because I mentioned in the premiere, I thought it was surprising that they didn't show what happened at the end of the last season, where it was that seems like one of those points where you just pick right up where you left off, and then it was just nope, we go straight to Oliver and this historian dude who has a pretty cool story in this episode. And I'm going to assume he's going to be a permanent fixture of the team who can actually fight now, because I'm guessing he'll end up having super strength or something like that, maybe just endurance or whatever. But excuse me, they kind of explain why they don't do that, because Rex Tyler shows up, he tells them, hey, this is what's happening, don't go to 1942, and then he just fizzles out. It's just random, he vanishes, that's all there is to it. So, excuse me, it turns out that, Eobard Thawne comes in, he erases him from the timeline, and I'm assuming the way it's supposed to play out is sort of the infinite loop sort of thing as far as time travel goes, because I'm okay, well, if he somehow got the ship and went to, he comes to 2016 to say, hey, this is what's happening, don't go to 1942, and then he fades from existence. If he gets killed in 1942 by Reverse Flash, none of that would happen. So I'm assuming that he gets killed, he's supposed to get erased from the timeline temporarily, and then they do some other stuff, end of the season, they'll do something and they'll stop Reverse Flash somehow. There's so much time travel stuff, I don't know how they expect to make it make sense. And they've already done a couple of things where it's that shouldn't work. But it's time travel. It's something is always not going to be right until we can time travel. We'll just have to deal with it. But I'm assuming that he was supposed to die here, and then something will happen. The Legends will do whatever. They'll beat, Reverse Flash. They're going to beat the other dude whose name I can't think of, Damien Dark. They'll beat both of them, and then they'll still be able to save Rex Tyler. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know if he's going to keep the ship, because that was one of the big things, is that he came down in the Wave Rider. So there's still a huge question as to how that happened. Why was he the only one on the ship? And, stuff like that. So there are a million questions as to how this is supposed to play out. But for now, Rex Tyler's dead. I'm sure they'll go back and talk with the rest of the JSA, and they'll have to do some more team-ups, throughout the season. But in this episode, I love what they did. It was they start off with them basically, the Legends got destroyed. This whole episode, which is a part of kind of why I love it, because it was just funny. Whole episode, they get beat up in the beginning, and then the rest of the episode is yeah, you guys aren't really that good. You guys aren't superheroes. Especially, man, Vixen, when she was talking with Ray, I forgot what he said, but she's if it makes you feel any better, you're not really a superhero. And then she walks off and is wow, they don't care about the Legends at all. They're just yeah, you guys suck, time travelers, you come back to 1942. The first thing they think, it's actually the logical thing, I can't deny that, but the first thing they think is like, oh, we're not impressed. It just means you're telling the truth. Which, and then right after, it's like, that just makes you more dangerous. And it's like, oh, man, they just don't give a crap. It's like, yeah, you guys suck. You aren't heroes. All this other stuff. And it was just really interesting. I was like, wow, this is kind of harsh, but it's very funny to watch. And they go through some really cool stuff where, like Rex, and they kind of mention this with him being from 1942, he goes straight to Stein as being like the team leader and stuff because that's just what he assumes is the case. And so we go through this episode of Stein coming up with the plans and stuff, and it works at first. His first plan does make a lot of sense. He does the Max Lorenz thing, and I was curious how that was going to play out. I was very surprised that they actually had him sing, and it was like a good thing, and it ended up falling apart because of the Heil Hitler stuff. I was like, oh, I thought they were going to have to do like a rush job, like make sure he doesn't end up singing on stage. So that was surprising. I was like, oh, they actually did the singing thing, and they go through, they do the big fight, they escape. And so they go through, they love fight Nazis. I think that'll be like, because they did it like, I think like 2 or 3 times in the last season, and now that seems to be like the whole thing. It seems like they're going to be fighting Nazis like the whole season, because with Rex, Tyler dying, I assume that they're going to be going right back to the 1940s, and they'll be dealing with the Nazis again. It seems like to be the big thing. And of course, Reverse Flash is working with them, and I guess it makes sense if he wants, I guess, to destroy the world or whatever. It does make a lot of sense to work with the Nazis over anyone else because of the great power that they had at the time. So it makes a lot of sense that he do that, and it's like, okay, they already have this much power and control in this area or that area. So I guess it explains why they're sticking with Nazis instead of jumping through time. Because of course, Reverse Flash, he could be like, all right, Damien Dark lives up to this point in time. I can just keep jumping decades until we finally make this crap work. So, it makes sense, but I think they're basically going to be fighting Nazis the entire season, which I don't mind. Never hate seeing Nazis get beat up. Well, there's certainly some people who do mind, but those people suck anyway. But, they go through, they beat up the Nazis. Of course, they have to go back in time. And the whole point of the episode is like, okay, well, this happened, we talked to the JSA, now we have to go back and save them because the dog tags disappeared on the historian guy. I'll have to remember his name later. But it's like, alright, we gotta save them. So they go through, beat up some Nazis, the team comes in, they don't trust them, they still have to work with them, and then Stein has no idea what to do during like their first really big mission. And so they go for the amulet, which we still don't really know exactly what's going to be happening with that, but I assume it'll come back into play later. So they get the amulet and they leave, both Ray and Vixen. So, they're kind of trapped and they have to figure out, what the heck are we going to do? Do we save our people? Do we just bomb the base and that's it? And so that's when we got a pretty cool moment where Stein realizes he is not meant to be the leader. And it should be Sarah, which I think is a great choice. Plus, League of Assassins, she has a ton of training. They work as a unit. As much as one assassin can go out and do a mission, it is the League of Assassins because they always come in just like 40 people strong, just trying to kill everybody off. So she has that team dynamic in the weirdest sense, but she still has it. So it made a lot of sense during the scene. Where it was like Sarah and Rex arguing about what they should do, and Stein's like, no, she speaks for all of us because she is the team leader. So if she says we're going to save our people, or literally both of our people, then that's exactly what we're going to do. So I thought that was great. It made a lot of sense. Stein, he had a big head in the very beginning because it was like when Jefferson called him Gray, he was like, it's Captain Gray now. I was like, oh, that went straight to his head. That was like instantaneous. So he learned, through the course of just the one episode, and I appreciated that. And they go through, they got to deal with this, this one Nazi dude who gets like this crazy super serum from Eobard Thawne, and that, of course, I have to talk about. That was the worst thing about this entire episode, was that crappy CG dude. Like, it worked at first when they first did it and he like injects himself with the serum. I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool because it's like, it's basically like, I thought it was just gonna stop at his veins like basically popping out of his entire body. I was like, okay, that's kind of a normal thing you see when it's like a super soldier sort of deal. Like their body is like pumping so much blood. That's basically what it's supposed to visualize. Like the veins are like engorged and stuff because the blood is pumping so crazy through their bodies, like pumping through their system at such an accelerated rate, and the adrenaline and all that stuff. So you like see the veins through like their entire body in places where you normally wouldn't. I was like, all right, that works. And then it kept going, and it went super. It went obviously it went 100% CG, and I was like, this is terrible CG, and that's what I hated. That was like the one thing I hated the whole episode. I was like, this is a cool episode. We have the JSA. They hate the League, which just makes they gave them a bunch of funny lines. There are a couple of references to like just people being racist and stuff, like the German dude talking about no Negro music, which I was like, all right, yeah, I guess Nazis. So they had a bunch of good stuff in this episode. The action I thought was really well done, and the opening scene was really awesome where we got to see the JSA use their powers. So great action, great fight scenes. The dialogue was really good. The team dynamic I thought was great with characters, like Stein realizing what the role he should play and the role that Sarah should have played as new team leader. All this other stuff was great. Plus, just seeing Reverse Flash is awesome. And then you have like this horrible CG guy, and it was like easily could have stopped at the veins thing. Could have just had like a bigger dude or done wire work. I don't know. Like honestly, I don't know. But there were definitely options. They could have. I mean, the only thing that they probably couldn't have done, as far as like this guy being like super strong and super fast, was probably the super fast part, which they could technically do. I mean, he of course doesn't have to run as fast as any of the Flashes or any of the speedsters, but they could have done camera work with that and just been like, okay, so the motorcycle looks like it's moving really fast or something, and he's like catching up to it. I mean, they did it in Terminator, and that came out in Terminator 2. That came out like 1992. You have a character just look like they're running super effing fast. They catch up, and then you cut it, and then they're not so close because they trip or the bomb hits them or something. Whatever. But it was like they had to do it that way. They couldn't just do like he's super strong. They don't know it, but he's super strong now, and he punches someone and they fly like 20 feet, and it's like, oh crap, he has super strength now. He must have taken a serum and do the vein thing. So they visualize it that way. But don't go full CG. At least if you're gonna do full CG, I mean, do good CG. But that was like. I mean, obviously, I can't make anything CG, so of course, it's like, that's awesome. If I could make that myself, that would be phenomenal. But CG, no matter what, if it's crappy in a live action sense, it sucks because everything looks real, and then this looks about as fake as it can look. Like, it just was terrible, and I was like, wow, that was bad. And it wasn't like, oh, it's CG from far away. They had a bunch of close-ups of them. It was just bad. It was like Stretch Armstrong. That's what it was. Because his legs were skinny, but he got like super insanely buff. That also made it look really weird because it was like his legs still looked too skinny for his body. Even though his legs clearly got bigger, it was still like, it just looked like his legs were still skinnier, but the top half of his body was just 100% extra muscle, or like 300% extra muscle. And he's just running, and he's this giant thing now and stuff. And I'm like, this just looks so bad. So I hated that. That was like the one thing I just truly did not enjoy about this whole episode. It's like they shouldn't have done CG for that. And if they were going to do like the vague CG thing, like I said, just show like far away CG, or do like glimpses, or like just a fist comes in for like a split second and he knocks someone in the air. But don't just do like, it was like watching the Hulk. Like, of course the Hulk can be CG. I mean, the Hulk still looked better. If you watch the Hulk, it's better CG than what we had, which makes sense. They don't get like millions of dollars per season. But it was just nuts. I was like, that looked so bad. That just upset me. I was like, wow, just the options they had. I mean, I know I don't know. I guess it depends on how much work you have to do with the CG. But I would have assumed that, considering how often that character showed up in the CG version, or in CG form, I would think wire work would have actually been cheaper. But you have to like rent the cranes and stuff. So Maybe not. It probably wasn't cheaper. Probably much cheaper to do it in CGI, but it just looks so bad. So I had to have my whole rant on that because I was like, man, that was like the sore spot. The whole episode, I truly loved it. And it's like, man, we get the JSA, we get all these new, heroes and stuff. We get, like I said, the early version of Vixen, which is cool, which they might play around with that in future seasons and stuff like that, where it's like we have JSA Vixen meet the current day Vixens, little stuff like that. It's like the possibilities here are great. Take some of these characters and be like, all right, let's have you guys time jump with us, and you guys can be heroes throughout time, and then eventually send them back to the 1940s so that they can live out their normal lives. All this other stuff is like, there are possibilities here. The actual episode itself was great, and the CG just sucks so bad. But it was a fun episode. The way they ended, I thought was very interesting though, because of course we have our historian who's not really meant to be a big fighter, and then we also find out that he has a condition, I believe it's called hemophobia or something like that. It's not phobia because that's the fear of blood, but it's something, and I think there's a G in there, I don't know. But I know it basically, like, the condition is that his blood doesn't clot. So it made it more dangerous for him to be out in the fight, because if he was shot, being shot, you probably won't clot up. But, like, just simply being cut, he would just bleed out. Like, if it was an artery, or if it was, like, a deeper cut, or, like, an actual gash, instead of, like, just a little nick or whatever, he could have died, easily. So I'm assuming that he's going to end up having super strength, or, like I said, possibly endurance or something like that, because Ray tweaked the formula, which he was going to use on himself, which I thought was very interesting. I think Vixen got to him, where she's like, oh, so you're just a guy in a suit and stuff like that, and like, oh, you don't worry, you don't have to worry about not having succeeded, because, makes you feel better, you're not really a superhero. So I think she may have gotten to him, where he's like, oh, I can tweak this formula so I don't look like a gross, crappy CG monster, but I'll still have, like enhanced abilities and stuff like that. So I think we'll have our historian, and he'll come out, just as an enhanced human. The best example I can give is actually Captain America, to be totally honest. Like, I think he'll have enhanced abilities, where it'll be like, okay, he's much stronger than, a normal person, but, if someone actually came along with super speed, they'd stop him. Or if he went up against someone with, actual super strength, they'd stop him, stuff like that. So it's like in a normal situation, like, he can do more than Sarah could, because he has enhanced, abilities. Like, she's a great fighter and stuff, but if he had her skills, he could do more, because he'd be able to, even though she has all that training, his body just wouldn't feel pain nearly as much, or something like that. So I'm assuming that that's where we're going to be headed with his character, is that he's going to, have these sort of abilities. He might even get, like, somewhat of, of a healing factor, considering his previous condition, where he would just flat out bleed out if he was cut. So that might affect, the power that he gets and stuff like that. But he's going to have something. Like, it's very clear Ray was going to use that serum to make himself superhuman, and so he used it to save the guy's life. So he's going to have those abilities. He'll have, like I said, enhanced strength or whatever. He'll be able to run faster, stuff like that. So I'm actually excited to see how it plays out. He kind of held his own when they did the little bar fight. Everybody was kind of doing their own thing, and he actually, did a good job. Everybody's boxing. Everybody seemed like they were kind of boxing, and everybody, like, knew what to do. But it was cool. Like I said, I enjoyed the fight scenes. I'm excited to see where it's headed. I like what they did in this episode with the JSA. The way it ended, I thought was really cool, with, Eobard Thawne coming in. He takes out Rex. So they're going to have a lot of contact with the JSA, which of course has me very excited. I like the characters. I can't wait to see more of the characters, because basically we kind of got to see their powers a little bit. It's like, oh, Stargirl, shot some stuff here. Obsidian, we got to see, like, he was supposed to get shot and he, like, turned into smoke, which was really cool. And I think it was Obsidian. I'm pretty sure it was Obsidian. They showed, like, how he sees stuff at the beginning of the episode. I thought that was really cool. Commander Steel, I'm pretty sure, is just a human. He can just fight really well. But it was fun to see them work together, and they're a really good team. They were a great example for the Legends, which was a great part of the episode as well. That they just vote on stuff. They listen to the team leader. The team leader knows what he needs to do. They have some pretty harsh rules as far as like, you know, sacrifice and stuff. That's kind of what they do. It's like, you know, they live in that sort of time where it's like the soldier is not more important than the war sort of thing. And I like that idea because, you know, different times, different, you know, ethics, different, you know, different ways of being a hero, that sort of thing. So really enjoyed that. Thought it was cool. Really fun episode. Hated the CG thing, but ultimately I thought it was a good episode, leading to some pretty entertaining stuff with the JSA and, you know, fixing time so that they can save Rex. But of course, definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and I actually want to know how you guys think they're going to end up saving, you know, Rex Tyler, because it's obviously not going to be as simple as, oh, we'll just go back in time, because, you know, the whole thing is like, oh, we can't go back in time to times that we already went back to. They're not allowed to do that because it's like too much time travel or whatever. So somehow they're supposed to save him, you know. And he also didn't die instantaneously. That was something I noticed, because if you watch The Flash, when people do that hand thing, people, they drop. They don't like cough. They aren't bleeding like, oh man, it hurts, I'm dying. They do this, and then people are just like, they just drop dead. Like they're shocked for like a split second because they're like, you know, they're frozen in place a little bit because I guess they feel it when the hands go through them. So normally, you know, it's like they do this and go straight through somebody, and then it's just like, boom, you're done. But he's like on the ground, like, and they also did it differently because it actually looked like Eobard like literally punched through him, which is a little different. Because at first he was doing this, and then they show the other side of the wall, and he just like flew through him, and I was like, that's interesting. Like, we've never seen somebody do that. They normally like stop in their chest and then like pull it out, or they go like straight through them, but it's never like they punch through them. It's the same thing. It's just vibrating through their body. But maybe that's why it was different. I'm just making up excuses here, but I don't know. It was slightly different, but maybe they'll end up saving him before he dies, which shouldn't, you know, like I said, it shouldn't be the case because normally that's like an instant death type of thing. But I want to know your predictions on how they're going to somehow end up saving Rex, fixing the timeline, how all that stuff is supposed to play out, where he ends up getting the Wave Rider and no one else is there. I would assume the JSA wasn't there either because they mentioned he showed up, don't go to 1942, and then he disappears. So there's some stuff going on there, but like I said, I want to know your theories about it, and of course, I definitely want to know what you thought about the episode in general, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.